Hey, what's up, everybody? So today I'm going to cover the main constraints that can happen in a coaching business under 100K per month and how to tackle each one individually in order to solve them. And basically, the goal is to not let anything kind of stop you from being able to, be able to scale your business to 100K and knowing exactly what the problem is and then having the exact steps on what to do in order to solve it. So let's get straight into it, into the program that I created. And the main thing about this is um, that there's a lot of different things that could be the reason, right? But the most important thing is to understand what are the primary factors in terms of like what could be wrong and just keeping it as simple as possible. Because what I see is that a lot of people try to overcomplicate this or try to solve things at the wrong time, right? Like for example, if your close rate is above 20%, which is the minimum KPI, then trying to get that to 40% might not be the move, right? Maybe there's something else, like your price is way too low, like it's still 3K. And that could be the main thing that you could do in order to scale your business, right? And which is raise the price. Or, for example, your cost per follower, cost or cost per lead is super high. And so, you have to basically, you have to look at that and optimize your ads, for example. So the most important thing is fix the right thing at the right time. That's the goal ultimately. Okay. So there are primarily 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 10. Okay. There are 10 things that you want to look at that are the main constraints of your business, right? Now, not all of these things are entirely connected, but they're all like a string of events that happened throughout the whole process. Okay. So it's basically ads, right? Meaning ad spend more than ads. Ad spend, you have leads, right? The leads that you get from the ad spend, bookings from the leads, then qualified bookings within those bookings, show rate of those bookings on calls, the close rate of those people that do show up that end up closing, the price that you charge for them to join the program, the ROAS, so the ratio between the ad spend and the cash upfront that you collected from those sales, client results on the backend, right? From when those clients go through the process, and eventually the backend close rate, right? Of when you offer the continuation offer. So that's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm gonna go one by one and tell you exactly what is the main problem from each of those and how to solve it. Okay, so first thing is ad spend. Okay, ad spend is basically not spending enough on ads. Okay, so the solution is that you need to spend more on ads, but only if the overall metrics are good, right? So if nothing else is the problem, then what you do is just spend more on ads, right? Because now it's time to scale. And then if the systems are scalable as well, right? So if you don't have like a team in place in order to be able to take more calls, booking more calls, for example, spending more to book more calls, it's not going to work because you don't have calendar space, right? So at some point, you also need the calendar space. Um, so because of that, we want to do this only when the ad spend is already the last remaining thing, right? Everything else is pretty much solved. So that's the main one, the first one, right? The second one is leads, right? So let's say you spend $1,000 on ads, or let's say $100, just to keep it simpler. If your cost per follower is more than $15, right, and that's already pretty high actually, more than $5 is already pretty high. So let's say $10, or if your cost per conversation started is more than $20, retargeting or cold, but I would say retargeting is best for this case. Then you have a problem. That's the constraint, right? You cannot spend more on ads if if your cost per follower, cost per conversation is too high. So because of that, the solution is to optimize your ads, right? Your offer and your messaging, and test more ads and creatives. And then the second thing is to do more CTAs. So squeeze more out of the ads, right? If you're getting a bunch of people, you want to do more CTAs and more reach outs as well. Okay. You want to reach out to the people that are coming in as followers. So that way you can squeeze more out of those people from the ads. Okay. So this is the second one. The third one is bookings. And with bookings, if you have, it's a problem when you have less than 30 calls booked per week. And I would say I would even raise this number, but right now let's keep it at 30. If you're not taking at least 30 calls per week, it's just, or have 30 booked in your calendar every single week, there's something that is a bit off about your process. Okay. And so because of that, if it's not 30 at least, then you have to cut it, because this is considering that you're canceling some of those calls, right? So because of that, you need to really look at that, right? So if you have less than 30, then the solution is to increase your touch points and pitch calls, right? So do more follow-ups, long term and short term. Pitch more people, right? Don't be so hesitant about pitching, and let the form do the work in order to cancel people. And those are the two numbers to work on, right? So it's like your volume of work needs to be more. And then two is to improve your conversations quality, right? So maybe you're talking to a lot of people and you're pitching a lot of calls, but your pitch rate is too low. And so you want to improve the conversations quality in order for the people that you do pitch to actually want to book, right? And then the third thing you want to do is hire a setter or closer, okay? Because if you don't have enough time, right, you're going to, if you don't have calendar space, then you're not going to be able to spend as much time in the DMs to get the volume or the quality in order to book more calls, right? So because of that, if you hire a setter that does that all day, you're going to naturally going to be able to book a lot more. And then second thing is the closer as well, which is if you don't have calendar space in your calendar to be able to close people, right, to have those slots in the in your calendar, well, then it's going to be tough for you to take the number of required calls, right? So there's not going to even be enough slots in your calendar to take the calls in order to hit the 30 plus minimum, right? So these are the solutions. Next thing is the qualified bookings, right? So qualified bookings is people that, based on data, are the ones that remain after you cancel the ones that you know are not going to be good, right? So if you're canceling more than 80% or less than 20%, less than 20% of calls, then you have a problem, right? Why? Because if you're canceling more than 80, that means you only have 20% remaining. That's very low. That means there's something wrong with your lead flow, or you're canceling too much or something like that. Or if you are canceling less than 20% of your calls, right? So you're keeping 80% or more, that means that you have you're not canceling enough, right? So you're leaving a lot of calls in the calendar, which is probably decreasing your show rate and increasing your rescheduling rate. And also the people that show up just don't have the money, more than likely, especially in B2C, right? So what do? The solution is to optimize your ads, right? In case if you're canceling too many, right? So you want to, again, work on your offer and messaging. Two is you want to cancel more calls based on data, not cancel based on emotion, but cancel based on data, which is super important, right? So look at the last 4 weeks, the more the better, honestly, but at least the last 4 weeks of data, and see all the people that filled out the form and answered this certain way, they ended up hopping on the call and not having the money, or not wanting to close, or not being an ideal avatar, things like that. Because of that, you want to cancel those calls, but also make sure to check the positive, right? The people that did select the other answer, right? Did they actually come to the call with the same problem or not, right? Because that will tell you, is it only the people that say no, or is it just a overall thing, right? And then the third thing is to improve your conversation's quality, meaning the people that you're talking to, right, get better at connecting with them so that they're more likely to actually want to hop on the call, right, and to have that to be qualified, right? Because the people, what I mean by this is, like, you might be really good at volume, right? You might be talking to a lot of people, even booking a lot of calls, but maybe you're only booking the people that don't really see what you're doing, and you're being maybe too salesy, too pushy. And so the people that are actually have the money and are ready to be booked, then they might be a little bit turned off by that, and so they're not hopping on the call. So you want to look at that as well. Okay. Next thing is show rate. Okay. If less than 60% of people are showing up to the calls, that's a problem. Okay. It needs to be at least 60%. So the solution is to improve your setting skills or process, right? Within the setting process, of course. So in terms of skills, it's the execution, right? It's like, how do you use the three aspects of, acknowledge, add value, and then ask a question in order to lead the conversation towards a book call. And then also it could be a process problem, right? Because again, if you're not talking to people correctly, and you're turning off the people that have the money, or you're taking too long to pitch the call, for example, then that's a process problem, and just it's going to turn them off, right? So they're also not going to show up, because the people that are less quality are also going to show up less, right? And so it kind of ties into this. So actually, I will Copy this here, it's practically the same thing. The next thing is to improve your thank you page and video, right? So in order for them to show up to the call, before the call happens, I recommend you to have a thank you page with the video that they have to watch, selling them on your story and on your mechanism, right? So that way they're prepared for the call and they're sold on those two things. So it's a lot smoother of a call. A lot of times people kind of rush the thank you video, or they don't do it properly, or it's just that they just need to redo it because it's not working for some reason. And because of that, then they need to actually, they need to make it better. There's also another chance that if people are not watching the video, right, then they won't even be able to be impacted by the video, right? But that's a setting skills process problem. And then finally, it's add more reminders, right? If you're doing the basic reminders already and it's still not getting you to 60%, having fixed all of these other things, then maybe you just need to add more reminders even on top, and maybe call them as soon as they're booked. There's different ways to do it. So if you still have this issue, let me know, and we can always find a way to solve this. Next thing is the close rate. Okay, if less than 20% of people are closing on calls, the ones that show up, then it's a problem, right? So the solution is to cancel more calls, right? A lot of times canceling more calls is going to fix that because you're canceling all the bad ones that are just not worth it, right? You want to also improve your thank you page and video once again, right? Because that's going to increase the quality. You want to offer to more people on calls, right? If you're not offering to at least 88 out of 10 from the calls out of 10 calls that you take, if you're not offering to at least 8 out of 10 calls that you take, that's not enough. You need to offer to more people, right? Next is you want to improve your closing skills / process, right? A lot of times it's more skills than process because the process that I have is pretty good, so you don't have to change it too much. But there might be certain questions that have to be tweaked a little bit in order to be received properly, or I have to re-explain certain parts that get misunderstood, right? So that's where I jump in reviewing your calls, of course. And then finally, you just have to do more follow-ups, right? After the call. So I'll add that here after the call, because sometimes people don't close at the first, in the first call. So you just might have to follow up with them. And then eventually the goal is to get you to a place where 50% of your weekly closes come from long-term follow-ups. That's when you know you're doing things really well. Next thing is price. Okay. Basically, it's a problem if it's below 6,200. The solution is to increase price if you have at least a 20% close rate. You have too many PIFs without price shock, right? So it's like people just paying full. It's like, oh yeah, sure. People will do that when it's like 2,200, 24, 28, 3,200. People won't complain at all. If you believe the service is worth more and you can sell confidently, that's also another reason to do so. If the industry is average is higher, right? If your competitors are charging way more, if you get very few money objections, all these are good green flags in order to raise the price. These two, this one actually being the most important. So as soon as you hit 20% KPI and you're not happy, the price is below still this, raise it. Really, every few weeks, raise it. Another thing that can help is to improve the delivery process, right? Because maybe you feel like you don't want to charge more because your delivery, you don't feel like it's good enough, right? There's some issues with the results. So because of that, you want to work on that, streamline it a little bit more so you feel confident selling at a higher price point. And eventually also the offer, right? That might tie into the delivery process. Maybe it's because your promise is not as big as it could be. So you need to work on that as well. Okay. Next thing is ROAS, which is the ratio between ad spend and so return on ad spend, right? Which is typically used as how much cash upfront you collected from the ads. Easier just to call it like the ratio between both. So if you don't get a 3x ratio at least on the ad spend compared to upfront cash collected, then anything below that is a red flag. So you want to get at least a 3x ROAS, if not more. And then the way to do that, right? If it's not that, then you want to fix that by optimizing your ads once again, do more CTA, so squeeze more out of the ads, and then collect more upfront. And this is where you use strategies like the open wallet, which is the objection handling that I taught, right? So that helps a lot. And then you use buy now and pay later solutions like Affirm and Klarna, right? So that you get more people to come in and to pay more upfront. Next thing is client results, right? If you are getting, this might be a bottleneck as well because it's preventing you from putting more in ads, for example, right? Like everything might be good, but if you're not getting good client results, right? You could technically put more in ad spend, but I don't know. I think that's not the best thing to do, right? Like you probably should fix your delivery a little bit first. So what I like to look at if 10% or more of clients have flags, right? Red flags in the process, like complaints, not paying you, ghosting you, things like that. Or if you collect less than 80% of your contracts, then it's something to look at, right? Less than, so that means like somebody said they were going to pay you 6K over the next 6 months, right? 1,000 per month, and you only end up collecting like 3,000, right? Or 4,000. If that happens with everybody, that's going to be about a 50 to 60% collection rate. And that's not ideal, right? So you want more than that, because one, it either means that people are saying yes to join the program, but then they don't have actually the money to join. So it's a problem of like the closing process, or it's just that you're not good enough for client results, so they're not getting the return to be able to pay you the rest if it's a money offer. Or thirdly, you're not getting client results, so they feel like they're not getting what they want, so they're kind of like just backing out and ghosting you because they don't know how to confront the situation, which is unfortunate, but you got to fix that. So it's really that is you got to improve the delivery process and skills. So the process might already be good based on what I've given you, but you want to kind of play with the things that I gave you and improve the holes that might still be there based on your specific offer. And then also your execution on that, right? Are you really consistent every single week with what you're doing on those processes, right? And those SOPs. And then finally, we have the backend close rate, right? So once you have somebody go through the program for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're gonna get them on the graduation call where you'll check in with them, collect a testimonial, and transition into making them a backend offer, right? Where basically you're going to offer them a recurring monthly payment of 10 to 30% of the original amount in total, per month, right? And so if you charge 5K, you would charge between 500 to 1,000, 1.5K per month, perhaps a little bit less in the beginning just to get a few wins. And so because of that, you're going to be able to just have it collected in the back end and not lose the people. So eventually, if you want to build a mastermind, once you're beyond 100K, you can even upsell them to that again. But at least you're not going to have to build a whole new product. So if less than 30% of people are closing on graduation calls, right, that last call, that's a problem, right? So you want to improve, again, your delivery process and skills. That's one of the reasons. So you want to improve it. You want to improve your closing skills process on the graduation call, right? Maybe you don't know how to handle the objection, although this shouldn't be the main reason, honestly. And the third thing is, do you want to improve the backend offer? It just might be that it's not attractive enough. You're not like explaining it in a way that it's good, or we just need to tweak the pitch a little bit, and that should fix it. So that's about it. That's how you take care of all the constraints and you solve the constraints. And yeah, hope that was helpful, and have an amazing day.